Oh yeah. Yeah, we have a lot to.
Lisa, are you ready?
Thanks. Just learning how to do these webinars instead of just Zooming. Josh, here. Should be recording, so I think we're good.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May meeting of the Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission meeting. If we're gonna take a few minutes, because we just got handed to us 2 reports. We just got them as I sat down. They were sitting, I'd never seen them for the first time. And it pertains to what we're gonna be going over to tonight. If you give us a few minutes so that the committee could go over what we have and yeah, before you officially start the meeting. So guys, just go over what.
Yeah, there's 2 pieces of
Yeah.
correspondence I think you should review. One is from Land Tech,
Yep.
and another is from Chatham Tree Care
Yeah.
that we received
Yeah,
late today or during the day today.
yeah.
Yeah. We talked.
Yeah. Well, it'll be, it's in the packet, it's automatically in the packaging. Oh, well, that, we're gonna discuss that. We're gonna discuss that. Yeah, let me do it. I'll do it. Yeah. Everybody go through, everybody got it. Bill, you set? Jim, you want to?
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, everyone, for letting us read through this. First, I just have to say that we have alternates sitting in, Margaret, because we're short a regular member. First, I'd like to call the committee for the past minutes. Everybody read them over. Any additions, deletions, corrections? If not, a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Commissioner Rogan, motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Very good. First public hearing on application 25-03W proposed by Vesta Corporation and O'Riordan Magana Architects LLC to construct an affordable elderly housing complex with associated improvements on lots 63 and 65, block 54, at 143 Purcell Avenue. Can I have a motion to open a public hearing?
I make a motion to open public hearing.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who's up?
Do you want me to move this somewhere so everybody can see it?
Sure.
Yeah, if you can,
Whatever
yeah.
you're comfortable with. Yep.
Everybody will see if we, maybe on that, would it be best over there?
Will the camera, the camera, yeah, that'll be fine.
Here's another view.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Greenblatt from Vesta Corporation. Part of the development team for 143 Percival Avenue. Have with us tonight Joe Magani from OMA Architects, Dave Nafis, our civil engineer, and George Logan, our soils expert. We are proposing 2 buildings on the property, a total of 70 units for senior affordable housing. It's in response to the town's RFP last summer. The town has been seeking to develop this parcel into senior housing for many years. We have our application in. And again, the plan calls for the 2 buildings, which our understanding is that the footprints of those buildings are very similar to a proposal that was previously approved. Again, if everything goes according to plan, we will be beginning construction late this year or early in 2026 on this project. I'm going to introduce Dave Nafis, our civil engineer, to provide some details on this.
Just for the record, David Davis, licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Davis and Young Engineers, 1355 Middletown Avenue in Hartford, Connecticut. Basically, we have it. It's the approved plan. This is very similar to the approved plan with some minor modifications. This is the detention area. We basically mimicked what was previously approved. We just checked the numbers to make sure that the sizing, everything was correct. The original plan had some parking like right in this area. So we've removed, that part has been removed and it's been redistributed out through the rest of the parking area. We just did, the only thing we really added was a little circle here, and this is for the fire marshal that added us to make sure they have a turnaround so they can get in and out correctly. If you look, all the water that's collected here, roof leaders, parking lot, everything is directed into the pond. We have and then it overflows out here. You'll see there's another pipe here that runs out. This one's along the back of the building. This collects water that's coming down from the neighbor's property, and it's run direct. We bypass the detention pond with that. That's just because that's kind of clean water coming off the neighboring properties. The blue is the pond. The green is kind of the area, the banks. It's about the maximum is about a 4-foot high bank around the pond. And that's basically very similar to what was there last time. the original approved plan. Other than that, there's really not much change from the plan that was approved years ago, other than moving that parking lot out and redistributing it there.
George?
Good evening, everyone. My name is George Logan. For the record, we're Principal Environmental Scientist with Green Ecological Services. Just for the record, I am a registered soil scientist, professional wetland scientist, and senior ecologist through the Ecological Society of America. And I've been in the field for almost 38 years. And before this commission numerous times. My first order of business was for me to recollect what I did back in 2003. It's been many years. I went back to my archive. I actually had pictures, which was always a good thing. I had my report from that time, which was the wetland delineation that you see here. And so because of the passage of time, it seemed more than prudent that I would go out and make sure that nothing had changed, that there were no substantial material changes in existing conditions. So in January 17th of this year, I went out, and surprisingly, I found a whole bunch of my old flags, which is surprising. So many years ago, some of them were barely hanging on, like me sometimes, and some of them were just stubs. So I was able to sort of reconstruct what I did, and if you went out in the field, you probably saw some of my newer flags that were placed at the approximate locations or at the exact locations of the previous flag, because some of them I found on the ground. So I'm like, okay, where was it? Was it here? Was it here? So I did a little digging to verify, and so those are some of the flags that you see. And so what we have here is a forested wetland. There's actually, I delineated two wetlands. One is this, and then there's a little hillside, because back then we were also considering part of this property here, as you recall, because that's this property that you see in the map is the property we're sitting on right now. So there's another wetland here. This wetland is a forested wetland. It has two intermittent watercourses at a minimum that go through it. You can kind of make one is coming this way. There's another one this way. Actually, there's actually another side channel just off site. And part of this wetland receives water from drainage, from existing drainage. The soils are, for the most part, poorly drained. There are probably some very poorly drained pockets here and there. And what we call the rainfall soil series. And the upland soils, well, a lot of them obviously are disturbed, as you can see from the previous development, but those that are not disturbed, most likely the Ellington sill loams. Forested wetland, fairly good diversity in the overstory. We have sycamores, we have cottonwoods, we have your red maples that we always see. There used to be some green ash, no more. That's gone by the way of the dinosaurs, I suppose. And also fairly robust understory and herbaceous layer. There are invasives in the area. So most of them are along the edge, as you would imagine, since this is pretty close to an existing edge, forested edge that kind of runs in this particular way. And overall, this is, like was said before, it pretty much mirrors the project that was approved here by the commission before. I like the fact that we have little water-looking symbols in this detention pond, because if you look at the contours and you compare them with the contours within the wetland, you will realize that we're going to have a saturation in the bottom. So this will become a wetland. Over time, it will, there's certain seeding that's going to take place into it. But it's going to function as a wetland, which is a good thing, because as you know, wetlands do, even constructed wetlands do a good job of taking care of nutrients and other pollutants that might go off the parking lot. And this, obviously, this is something that is necessary to be done. If you look at the detention basin altered structure, you'll see several levels of offices and outlets. And the one that's at the bottom is very small, and the one above it is a little bigger, which means that there's going to be a detention time during storms, which is good, which means it'll give enough time for settling out of pollutants, attenuation of pollutants within this stormwater management basin, which is not only for water quantity, but it also is for water quality. So that's kind of the overall picture that we have out here. I guess in my mind, looking at back and what was proposed before, the fact that we're mirrored pretty closely, this is not going to be a substantial impact upon wetlands. Now there is, as you can see, one little place here, about 60 square feet of wetland disturbance, which the engineer thought it was a good idea, and I agree with him, to get the emergency overflow right there, so that it goes right into the wetland. So if something would ever happen where that would work, you're not going to be eroding soils from that area down to the wetland. There's a gradual slope there, so and it opens up. So that's a good idea. So that's kind of what we have, and I'd be more than happy for answer any questions that you might have for me or from our engineer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, my question, what's the distance between the back of the building and the retention ponds?
To the actual pond, you probably, it's, Julie, I don't think they'll add it, because it's basically, it's gonna slope right down from the building. All the way.
Oh, it is. There's going to be a slope there.
Basically, because the building is gonna be higher,
Yeah.
it will slope down.
That's the length, that's the 18 feet is the length of the parking space approximately.
Yeah, so it's probably like 20 feet to the actual water itself, but
Oh.
it's gonna be a slope the
Yeah.
whole entire way from the
Just to see
building.
the
Yeah.
slope there. And that's a 3-to-1,
So,
which is your standard.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about the buildings or the amenities?
That's not really, unfortunately, that's not our concern. We're just concerned about the wetlands and, you know, what you're building, near or around them.
Perhaps for the commission's benefit, you could go through some of the minor changes, if you're prepared to do that, from the previous proposal. I know that you tweaked a few things here and there as far as the,
Our buildings
Footprint.
that we're proposing are narrower.
this is the, excuse me, this is the
This
approved
This is
plan.
the old one.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so there.
Kind of give you an idea, you can see how the pond is.
so if you, I want to talk to this one first. So these are wider and shorter,
Yeah.
wider and shorter. And we have thinner, longer, 3 stories height. And the nature is that the buildings are connected across the walkway. And that when you have senior housing, they're afraid to let me talk because I'm an advocate for senior housing. But by the way, my name is Joseph Magani. I'm a principal architect at O'Riordan Magani Architects. We're the architect of record designing the project with the Vesta Corporation. So the issue about senior housing is that this housing provides quality of life for income and age qualifying seniors in the community. And in the nature of senior housing, it integrates a lot of health and human services support programs. So there's a lot of community space and activity space in each building in terms of the community room, the lounge, laundries, library, there's exercise rooms, and so on. So the idea is that if seniors have limited ability, they can go outside and walk through the grounds. We have a community garden that'll be here, which is wheelchair accessible. And the issue is, because we've been working in senior housing for a long time, and I hate to admit it, but I'm a senior, is that it's about allowing people the opportunity to live where they choose and afford it and age in place. And many times people come back from other parts of the country to be close to family, which is a big motivator. Also, there's a fierce willingness or desire to be independent. So it's about quality of life, and creating opportunities for that. So 3 stories, gable profile, landscaped, adequate parking, addressing the fire safety, amenities along terms of the view. There's a little terrace off at the back of this building also, community garden, and then a lot of sidewalks and walking paths. So that's the basic, I would say, underlying motivation for the project. Quality senior house for our parents, their children's parents, and so on. I'll stop talking. Any questions regarding that?
Sure. As far as the parking goes, is there one parking spot allowed per unit, assuming that?
Yes, 1-to-1, plus for staff. I think we have 80 spaces. if I remember
And that
correctly.
includes staff and everything else?
Yes.
Do we have any concerns with water in the parking lot, level spreaders, apex plungers, any of that kind of stuff?
Dave has got a catch basin into the water collection and the dispersal system. So we would be designed to current standards. You want to talk about runoff, stormwater in the parking lot, how it's being collected and redirected?
Yeah, basically, you can see, here's all the, Dave Naphis again. This is, you can see, we got catch basins and pipes throughout the parking lot, and everything is graded away from the buildings out to the farther reaches of the parking lot where we could. So, if anything was ever to, it'll happen at the farther reaches of the parking. And then we have, this all goes, and this all goes, everything goes into the pond, except for, like I said, the 2 in the back of the building that go clean into there. But we do have catch basins that, out at the far roads and everything away from the building the best we could.
Of course, it's, the obvious thing is it's a tight fit because of the right of way going through the property with the existing line.
How far back is this set from Percival Avenue?
We got, here's Percival, so we had another, I forgot what that is, 75, 100 feet.
Yeah, at least that. You're basing the same lines as the old building that's there, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yes.
But-
No one's mentioned that, but actually getting rid of the Knights building that's contaminated is probably one of the
Right.
really good things.
And Jim, you talked about all the aptex as far as it,
We haven't spoken about that.
Is
no.
that-
That's
that's-
something that the commission would like to entertain. By all means, we could do.
well, I mean, I think that's something that we've asked all our other applicants to come in and, put all the catch basins to be, the aptec, or that type of,
It's a filtering
Filtering,
device within each structure itself that traps the hydrocarbons, from runoff in the parking lot, which we can give you a spec.
and we've asked all our other applicants who are, come before us to put that in there. And it seems to, they all agree that it's a good thing to do.
It's essentially another line of defense,
Yeah.
and
We pretty much set precedence with that.
Yeah.
That seems like a no-brainer.
It keeps maintenance of the detention basin.
Right.
yes.
Yeah. Bill, any questions, anything? Anybody else? Anybody from the citizens out there have any questions for these gentlemen?
Really good question. That first building.
Excuse me, if you could just
Oh,
identify yourself,
yeah,
name and address.
Oh, sorry. Dean Report, 167 Percival Ave.
Thank you.
So that first building that's on this one, on the map.
Yeah.
On the drawing, that's basically the Knights of Columbus. Now, currently.
The Knights sits here,
Yeah, so that building.
and then the driveway
Essentially
comes, and there's
replace
just a big parking lot there. I'm sorry, was that in your way?
Yeah.
So the Knights is here.
Yeah.
And then parking in front, and then this large parking area there.
So the parking lot would be the same parking lot right now.
No, it's completely removed.
No, I know that same period.
Same pattern.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much, because the parking lot goes to be like this, on the building, this side of it, and then pretty much putting the building where the Knights building.
Right. I know it doesn't affect the runoff or anything like that. Will there be any tree line put up or anything between? If my whole property is going to be surrounded by senior citizen buildings now?
Yes, we'll have landscaping design and,
So I can't see it or?
Zoning will take care of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll discuss that in the zoning, but yes, we'll accommodate that.
So your concern is,
My whole backyard, I'm going to be surrounded by senior citizens.
so where's your house?
We are.
Yeah, right. my whole backyard's right here,
Okay.
and my house is like right here.
I put the signs out. I met the people down here. They were outside the house. They were so friendly. It was really heartwarming.
Oh, I think taking down the building's great. I mean, there's glass everywhere, my kids play back there and stuff. I was just curious, as like the border, am I gonna see these buildings from my kitchen?
Well, I think your next step would be go to the
Zoning.
planning and zoning.
Yeah, no, this is the first
Yeah,
time I'm hearing about it, basically.
okay.
Yeah.
If there's no other Jim, you're also, no other questions, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Rogan will make a motion to close the public hearing of 25-03W.
Can I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now I need a motion to approve or deny this application for 25-03W.
I make a motion to approve application 25. Well,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as you would, as you had mentioned previously, you would enact a condition of the ABTEC or similar or equivalent type device be installed in all catch basins.
Per your office, your,
Sorry.
you can finish, you can add that.
So
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
aye.
Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
The next public hearing is application 25. Thank you. As I started to say, next application for the public hearing is application 25-04W, proposal by Shuttle Metal Development to construct 3-lot subdivision and associated improvements within a regulated area on lot 6A, block 12F at 398 Chamberlain Highway. Can I have a motion to open a public hearing?
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Evan Seaman. I'm a land use lawyer at Robinson & Cole in Hartford. I'm here on behalf of the applicant tonight, Shuttle Meadow Development. And as you all know, this is an application for a permit to conduct regulated activities at 398 Chamberlain Highway for a 3-lot residential subdivision. And I know many, if not all of you, are familiar with this application because it was before you just a few months ago, and then it was withdrawn because the statutory time limit had gone past what it was allowed to by statute. So the plans have been, the application has been resubmitted. It's the same 3-lot subdivision that's proposed at 398 Chamberlain, which the property as it stands now consists of about 2.15 acres, and under the proposed subdivision plan, there will be a rear lot, which will be about 1 acre, and then 2 smaller lots in the front that'll be about a ½ acre or so in size. And I should mention I'm joined this evening by Ian Cole, our wetlands and soil scientist, and Mr. Tommy Kokomo, here on behalf of the applicant, Shuttle Meadow. Now, since that application, I think since it's been withdrawn and we've resubmitted, there's been some more work that's been done to the site. Land Tech has been out to the site and did some test pits. I know as part of the first application, they had submitted a letter, and since then they supplemented that letter with a further report based on their analysis. One major difference too, I should note, in this application before you, as compared to the prior one, is there's actually a restoration plan, a mitigation plan that's proposed as part of this application, because a lot of the discussion the first time around was there fill at the property, when, who did it, how much, and those issues. So Land Tech has gotten involved, in Ann Cole and Cynthia Rabinowitz, who is and also a third-party consultant that the commission had engaged, have been involved in this project. And I'll let Ann Cole jump in just a second. But the property used to be used as a garden center, and now it's going to be converted from that use under this plan to a 3-lot residential subdivision. Mr. Cole's submitted a delineation report and also the restoration plan and some related materials. So I'd like to ask him to come up here and go over what he has, and then once he's done, I'll, I think, conclude with my remarks.
Good evening, for the record, Ian Cole, professional soil scientist out of Middletown, Connecticut, soil scientist of record for this application. I know everyone on the commission here for the most part is familiar with this. I went and looked at my letter. It was 1 year ago tomorrow that I delineated the wetlands on this site. So if you remember on this site, the front portion of it was the old garden center. In the back, there were some greenhouses that were permitted, I believe, around the 2020, 2023 kind of timeframe, something in that ballpark.
Excuse me 1 second. Do you folks have a site plan that the commission can see to know what you're talking about?
Sure. Maybe a good way to put this up here anyway. Sure. Sure.
Can everyone see that okay? So you, is that,
It's hard to see. It's a, the schematic drawing that Commissioner Jackson has in front of him. So the site's oriented. West is to the rear of the property. There's a strong tree line to the rear of the property, and there's a brook that flows to the south. Existing gardening centers kind of centered here in the east along the roadside. And this site here is kind of denuded of vegetation. It's kind of a milling ground, and then transitions to this shrub habitat as it gets back to the forested wetlands. I know the commission's heard extensive testimony on the last application and this application over the soil conditions across the site. I think it's been kind of well documented that the existing wetland boundary follows a limit of fill, and kind of it's undetermined of when the fill had occurred, but it was identified that 2 fill events essentially occurred on this property. As was previously stated, this application is different from the previous one, really in the addition of we had late this month had proposed a restoration plan to install roughly about 40 shrubs, wetland shrubs, kind of in this northwest corner. That area was chosen as it was kind of not in conflict with the development zones. As of today, Land Tech, the town's third-party review, had provided an updated report suggesting that this area, the restoration effort should be expanded upon, and should basically, their recommendation was to create a 25-foot wide zone continuing the entire length of the property. And the zone should contain basically a 10-foot wide swath of tall meadow grasses backstopped by a 15-foot wide swath of densely vegetated wetland shrubs or upland shrubs, because it's an upland buffer planting plan. I'm sorry, it's a wetland restoration plan, so there'll be soil amendments will need to happen also. Essentially what his letter says is, can the applicant submit a plan commensurate with restoring that 25-foot wide zone? And the applicant's willing to do so. I think, I'll let the attorneys speak legalese, but essentially, I think there's going to be, a request for like an order of condition to, develop that plan to the satisfaction of the town staff, so that, we could implement that as part of this plan for approval.
just to conclude,
No, I mean, that's essentially it, so, we're not in opposition to the plan that Land Tech's proposing. And the applicant's willing to, agree to restoring that 25-foot wide zone across the wetland boundary.
and we just got the comments from Land Tech this afternoon. So
Right, we got the same thing, but
yeah,
so we are going to need a plan of just show what you're going to do.
yeah.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject, I know in the process of correspondence floating back and forth the last couple of days between the applicant and the commission, your staff has requested the applicant to provide a plan showing the limits of the disturbed areas that were identified by Land Tech back, I want to say it was January or February, where we went back at least 50 feet within the majority of the areas running along and adjacent to the stream, where we encountered filled, maybe 1 or 2 layers of separate filling within the parcel over wetland soils. And I requested that so that the commission can get a better handle on just how much of an area was filled that was wetlands. And in accordance, and I don't want to speak for Land Tech, but I think from a historical standpoint, they went back with aerial photography, and it appeared the majority of these disturbances occurred somewhere between 2000, I'm going to say 18 and the present time. So looking at a restoration area as small as what we're seeing here, from a staff standpoint, I certainly wouldn't recommend that to the commission.
Point of clarification, the 25-foot wide strip or the 1,200 square foot strip that we proposed?
I'm saying the small restoration.
Yeah, no, we are in agreement with the small restoration. That was the effort put forth, that is not going to be the plan, that the plan would be to adopt the 25-foot wide strip. Sorry, that was my
and what I was requesting is a calculation of the square footage of area that had been previously
disturbed. Yeah, I think the problem with that is, maybe Land Tech can also interject here. I don't know that can be determined. I think everyone agrees that there's been fill across the site, but no one can determine when that fill technically occurred. I think Land Tech's letter even says that specifically, that, while it's agreeing fills occurred on the property, it cannot be determined when that fill occurred. And I think that's kind of the point here is, that there's been fill across the property, legacy fill, and there's obviously been 2 fill events, but it's just no one knows exactly when those fill events happen.
Well, going by the air photography, like you said, there's
evidence to suggest that, sure.
Right.
And we know that in 2020, the town permitted the use of those, greenhouses in the back. So maybe some activities happened during that. That definitely would make, because, again, I don't have the report in front of me, but paraphrasing, right? There's 2 fill events. The first fill event was, 12 to 18 inches, and the second one's much deeper, 40 inches plus. So,
And just a follow-up comment, I had a question, Mr. Hurble, based on your question, and that is, you were talking about just the restoration plan that the applicant proposed, not the comments that Land Tech was suggesting. Is that right?
I'm referring to the restoration plan that the applicants proposed versus the previous disturbances that have been identified by Land Tech.
You're with Land Tech?
Yes, sir.
We'd like to hear from you.
Yeah.
Hi, for the record, I'm Anthony Zemba. I'm a senior soil scientist and certified ecologist with Land Tech. Our office is at 518 Riverside Avenue, Westport, Connecticut. I'm here on behalf of the town as a third-party review of the restoration plan that was submitted, the original restoration plan submitted by Ian Cole on behalf of the applicant. And I was the soil scientist that conducted the test pit excavation in February. As Mr. Cole said, he's correct in his summation that there's been 2 fill events based on our 4 test pits across the rear, which is the west side of the property.
Can you show us where your test pits were?
Well, they were in 50 feet of the wetland edge from Mr. Cole's delineated wetland edge, which, by the way, I found to be accurate based on the site conditions out there. We were allowed to just do 4 pits across the back, so we kind of spaced them out evenly. We used a tape measure to come 50 feet off of the wetland line because we wanted to be within that 15-foot upland review area. Each test pit showed anywhere from 2 to 4 feet of fill. And as Mr. Cole had mentioned, we determined that there was 2 fill events that occurred. We just don't know when those events happened. Prior to our test pit analysis, my colleague Tom Ryder had done an aerial photo analysis and found that there was clearing of vegetation between the aerial photo dated 2019 and another one dated 2024. And he found anywhere from 87 to 109 feet of vegetation cleared along that back side of the property. But he doesn't know, where that wetland line edge would have fallen based on his aerial photo analysis. We just know that 87 to 109 feet of vegetation was cleared back there.
The fill that you found, what did it consist of?
Woody debris, allochthonous material, bricks, gravel, sort of stuff.
Do you think it came from that site?
Or
you think it was brought in?
Some of it I suspected because there was also buried flower pots and trays and things like that, indicative of landscaping business. So, the second event may have been redistribution of material on the site to kind of smooth it out.
But you don't know if any of it was brought in. Can you speculate if anything was brought in?
Yeah, I can't tell. Yeah.
So who put together this restoration concept here?
Mr. Cole.
The initial concept I had put together as a concept.
Are you in agreement with it?
Well, not as proposed, because it was just kind of
That one corner.
in that one corner, and based on what's happened across the site, I thought something should extend along the back to kind of reestablish that wetland buffer along the brook there, especially if you're going to have a residential lot with lawns and that could be fertilized and things like that. You want something to intercept that potential nutrient source before it runs into the brook. And you'd also like to have the area revegetated to shade the brook, keep the water temperatures cooler, and to provide some, wildlife habitat and restore some of the functions and values of the wetland.
And again, we received it just this afternoon and looked through it, but we think that the comments and suggestions are good ones. And obviously, we don't have anything that's revised to present to you this evening or any type of plan. So we'd ask that we have some time to put that together and we can work with Land Tech to do
I would suggest that you guys get together and work something out, a restoration plan. And
Yeah, we need more detail.
We need more detail, and then move forward with the restoration plan. Once that's accomplished, then we can discuss the rest of the site.
And we have the Land Tech, they'll be able to go over after the plans are, after you formulate plans.
The Land Tech is working on behalf of the
Town, that's what I mean, so, okay. So once, gonna need some time.
What would be provided is a written plan, as Land Tech's letter suggests. It suggests, can you provide a written plan, to the town, which, then they can forward to Land Tech to review on their behalf. And then, if the written plan is acceptable, we would update the plan set and so forth.
You have to give enough time so that Land Tech could, and the town could go over and make sure that it's acceptable to them. Or if they have any other questions that they want to ask.
Well, Mr. Chairman, again, and I hate to be, say it again, but the fact that staff has requested the plan to indicate the areas that were depicted by Land Tech's test pits on the plan, with the depths of the underlying or the overlying soils to the wetlands beneath them, so we can get a handle on the actual square footage of wetland that's been filled on the site. I don't think there's any question about that. And some significant filling has taken place over the past few years. A number of years.
Understand this?
Yeah, the only problem is, we were only allowed to do 4 test pits out there, so we can't delineate extent of fill based on that.
To do more test pits then.
From an X and Y point of view, we know from the depth. If you wanted to delineate the extent of fill on the site, we would have to do
Excavate the entire site.
Well, then we gotta do.
You could do it by borings, you could do it by test pits, but it'd be much more extensive than the effort that we were allowed to do the first time out there.
It'd also be impacting the entire site just to determine what was impacted.
It is what it is.
Well, I mean, we want to know where the original.
Yeah, so for, in a best
But
case.
how do you know that the fill, we don't know that some of that fill was in place before even the Clean Water Act, so it's kind of,
Well, I mean,
it's undetermined.
well, we're going off their aerial photographs and what they're saying, what was there in 2019, you said?
2019.
And to present, it's changed. And we just want to know where it's changed from.
So is the idea that you could do a mountain of test pits across the site to determine what the limits of fill was between 2019 and 20 now? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I would, Hank, Bill, you got,
Don't know how to do that.
Mr. Zumba, you laid out test pits 50 linear feet offset from the present wetland boundary.
Correct.
Why did you choose 50 feet?
Because you have a 50-foot upland review area. So I wanted those test pits to be within 50 feet of the existing.
And why didn't
Wetland
you go
delineation.
closer than 50 feet?
Well, I could tell from the test pits that I did dig and from the edge of the wetland, you could see that it's fill. And the test pits pretty much just tell us what the depth is.
Months ago, the neighbor to the north testified that the site, there was a filling event circa 2020, and that the hydrology of the stream was altered. In other words, the buffer wetlands to the water course were diminished, and the hydrology changed. Flood events, it became more pronounced.
Impacted their property.
Now, looking at the soil maps, the soil map that you provided in your report, there is a moderately well, the disturbed areas of the site are underlain by a moderately well-drained soil of glacial fluvial origin, followed by a very poorly drained soil of organic origin. It seems to me that the commission would be interested to know how much of that organic, those very poorly drained soils were impacted. And I don't think we know that at this point.
Correct, we don't know that.
And how do we know that?
We do know that there was another delineation referenced on one of the plan sets that we saw, and it was actually marked out in the field when I was out there.
There is a 1990s plan that has a line that says approximate wetland delineation that shows the sewer easement.
Okay, approximate.
Well, it says approximate.
Okay, so I'm not sure how that was obtained, but if we, just for argument's sake, at this juncture, if we think that that's more or less fairly accurate, then we know that the difference between the wetland line that's depicted here and that prior 1990 would be a good estimate of the amount of fill that was put on the site based on the average.
Or at a
of the
minimum,
depths.
a suggestive starting point to zero in on.
What is your estimate of the relationship between the former line, the 1990 line, and the 2024 line? What is that? If you can estimate that at this time, what is that estimated offset? What is that distance?
I don't know. It's probably it's greater than 50 feet because my test pits were between that line and Mr. Cole's line. So maybe another 10, 20 feet
10, 20 feet in what direction?
wider.
Well, then we know that.
Yeah.
Well, we know from your test pits that if I could characterize the concern of the Wetlands Commission, it's to know how the hydrology, how the function and value of that wetland has been impacted by recent filling. Your 4 test pits have demonstrated that it's somewhere further downslope or further west towards the current wetland boundary. That seems plausible.
Not sure I understand you. We know that fill has been placed on the site right up to Mr. Cole's line.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that the test pits that you did, 50-foot offset, you did not encounter organic soil. You encountered buried A horizons in your
Correct.
report.
Yeah.
Let me see, you had a quote in your report.
Yes, they weren't the Catton and Freetown soils.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a buried A horizon for the
Was that
mineral.
buried A, was that a consistent of the Ellington series?
No,
No, it was
no.
not.
It's probably like a Walpole or a Raypole soil.
So you found buried wetland soils?
Yes.
Walpole and Raypole are poorly drained soils.
Correct.
So you found buried poorly drained soils in your test pits.
That's right.
Would going further, and I guess that's not west, it would be south?
Oh,
From,
sorry, I was calling this west.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
you're
That's
right,
not
you're
correct.
right, that's west.
You're right, west.
Okay, so-
west is
Okay.
So,
towards
all right,
the-
so coming east, would it be behoove us to come further east?
Yeah, so what you could do is just continue those test pits as like a trenching until, you could find where the fill line stops. However, if this site was altered for the building along Chamberlain Highway, there could have been fill material, all over the site, or Udor vents, so that was moved around, that was graded. But what we would be looking for is that buried BG layer.
And keep in mind also, this building was built in, I believe, like 60 or 70, but there's another map, maybe, this is kind of it right here.
Yeah,
The
sewer line, right.
comes here, and that sewer line's something,
That's
if
right. We
the old
would
set
wanna-
was like 13 feet downgrade, right? So keep in mind, when that was installed, help me out, someone in the 80s, mid 80s, they had testimony that thing was like 13 feet down. So obviously you can imagine a 13-foot deep excavation at the surface would be, probably 40 feet wide at the surface to get down there. No, you don't think so?
No, come on.
No? Okay.
No, it's an exaggeration.
Back then, they were using trench
Yeah, they
boxes.
were
If that
trench
trench
boxes.
was 10 feet wide, that'd be a lot.
Okay.
Why would someone go to the effort to excavate that size of a trench?
Now, in your test pits, I'm sorry, I don't have your report
That's okay.
well versed, but you encountered two distinct types of fill material in your test pits, or just one? When the soil, the profile, did it contain two types of fill over the Raypole soil over that A horizon, or did it contain one type of fill material?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by types of fill. I mean, fill
Well, we're
material
talking-
by definition is just, could be anything. It tends to be heterogeneous, so.
If I could, I was present, there were no like profile development, there were no like clear like indication, like, because to, Lantec's point of view, if stuff was redistributed on the site, let's say, it would just be kind of mixed together, right?
Yes,
Is that what you're driving at?
Yes, but I understand. I think
Well,
I understand what you're saying.
Let me clarify.
In one area, it did look like more what you would expect as native upland material that may have been pushed in. And in other areas, it tended to be a little bit more heterogeneous, including those flower pots and trays and woody debris.
I'm just concerned, I think going further east then, I guess,
By 20 feet.
would we find the same type of fill? Would we find more native soil,
Oh, no.
It seems to me there's been filling events historically on the site. And those filling events may or may not have impacted wetland soils, but they're not recent filling events. I'm concerned about the extent of alleged recent events that have affected the function and value of the watercourse and the associated riparian wetlands. That's what I would like to know. What the impacts to the function and value of the wetland are, and what needs to be mitigated to restore that watercourse and its supporting wetland buffer, so that
We concur.
the detrimental effects that the neighbors have documented are mitigated.
Yeah, well, that's not me.
That's not you.
If there's a flooding
That's
event, if there's a flooding event that's being alleged, that's an engineer, hydrologic engineer.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking engineering, I'm not talking hydraulics, I'm talking about restoration of riparian wetlands. And
Sure.
I think that is you, right?
What you're saying, Bill, is that they might have pushed stuff into the watercourse?
What I'm saying is that the neighbors testified that circa 2020, there was activity on the property that affected the watercourse, that affected the hydrology. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you heard?
If I'm understanding, just because I'm one of the ones who's going to be tasked probably with trying to help develop this, what you're saying is just hypothetically speaking, there was wetland over here, this was filled in, if that filling then offset or impacted the floodplain capacity of the wetland over here, is that what you're saying? Or are you saying, is there concern that the filling went into the brook itself?
Well, where your hand is,
Yeah.
That there was a topography of the site prior to 2020. I think Jim said between 2018 and the present. So prior to 2018, there was a site topography, and that could have involved fill material over historical poorly drained soils that you found in your test pit. So
Yes,
I'm not
okay.
advocating that we continue further east to try to delineate. I'm saying that the neighbors testified that 2020, there was activity on the property that caused some detrimental effect to that watercourse and the associated wetlands, that caused an altering of the hydrology, that caused flooding events.
I recall that too.
And my question is, so it seems to me that those very poorly drained organic soils have a very high function associated with that watercourse. And if those soils have been somehow buried, and where, they're the riparian soils that protect, that buffer the watercourse.
Right, but you keep talking about flooding events, and that's for a hydrologic engineer to determine. That's
No,
not.
don't misunderstand me. I'm saying that the neighbors have testified that the wetlands have been disturbed and causing flooding events. So it seems to me that this commission is interested in determining the amount of wetland disturbance that has affected the watercourse. So I'm not asking you to mitigate flood events. I'm asking, how do we know where these riparian soils have been disturbed that have caused and often the hydrology to be altered?
There it is. That's what we're looking for, a restoration plan that is satisfaction of this commission before we can move further with this application.
And ultimately how to determine what the grandfather fill limits are on top of wetland soils, but it sounds like, is that the understanding?
What define grandfather fill for me?
Please, I'm looking for that same answer, because you have two fill events, and all I've heard through this whole testimony is you have three soil scientists, myself, Cynthia Rabinowitz, and Anthony, all saying that no one can determine when the fill happened on the site. There's conjecture and speculation based off of air photo evidence of vegetation removal, that's commensurate with some type of disturbance. But nobody has been able to provide any evidence of when the actual fill event happened. So, I wouldn't be able to tell you that. I don't know how you suss that out.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I will say that Ms. Rabinowitz, she failed to follow or acknowledge the request of the commission in determining previous events on the site. She did nothing more than verify the wetland line that was identified by Mr. Corey.
Right.
Yeah, she just
She
said
didn't
wetlands
fulfill
at
the
edge of
commission's
fill.
request.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I wouldn't even put her in this category.
Sure, we'll
And
take
that
her
was,
out of the
and
conversation.
keep in mind, folks, that was a previous application that Ms. Rabinowitz responded to. Likewise, as Mr. Jackson is saying, we've heard from the neighbors in the past. That was a previous application that's been withdrawn. I think, as a part of the public hearing this evening, you'll be opening up to the public. And if residents comment to that effect at this point, that is what the commission must use to make their judgment on the application.
I didn't mean to conflate any of the issues, but.
If I could just interject on that issue, I've heard sort of multiple times, and Jennifer Capola, Council to the Commission for the record, I've heard multiple times reference to prior testimony. It seems that you are keeping that in mind in terms of your consideration of this application. I do suggest that you incorporate that record into this record because it's reasonable that you're not going to forget everything that you learned from that prior application. And there's been a lot of discussion. Well, this is what was presented last time. This is what I remember from the prior testimony. I think you should consider incorporating that prior record. I think it makes sense. And that's up to you. It would be done by a vote.
Bill, I'm going to ask you this. I understand what you're saying, that the brook or whatever, the water course was altered in some way. How do we go about seeing that it's either replaced or find out how,
For what it's worth, I think there's two conversations. There's the water course, just keep in mind, and there's wetland soils. I think wetland soils on the site could have potentially been filled, because obviously grandfather fill.
Right.
But I do not believe the water course proper was filled. I believe the fill went up to the water course. Here's why. If you go back and you look at the old historic air photos dating back to 34, that channel is very straight and linear, and it's always maintained the same aerial footprint and all the successive things from 34, 51, 72, 86, going back to your GIS 2010, 2016, 19, 23. So that line is steady. So I don't think the water course itself has been filled. I think filling up to near it within 5 feet of it has happened. And the closest point where that has happened is kind of more or less in the southwest corner. But with Land Tech's proposal of restoring that 25-foot wide zone through the whole thing, I think we'll, address that issue.
I was just going to say, we want to make sure that when we come back next month, we give the commission fully understand what the commission is looking for, so that we can put that together, give it to you in Land Tech, with sufficient time to review it. So if you have some clear guidance from it, there's been a lot of things that have been discussed. So guidance as to what exactly you're looking for.
Well, I mean,
help us with that.
we can't tell you what you're going to do. You're going to show us what you're going to do to solve the problems that we're having. And through our staff and through Land Tech, they'll review it to see if they feel that this is going to solve the problem. And not only that, that it's going to correct to go back to the proper wetlands area that was there before.
So we're looking to find out what the actual wetland was there before. Is that what we're trying to do?
Well, I think from with Mr. Call and Land Tech, I think they're both saying you really can't. You really can't, because all the fill, they don't know when it was placed, how it was placed.
So the question is, what are we looking for then? That's my question. I don't know.
Well, to that point was why the applicant had proposed what my restoration plan was, right? That 1,200 square foot corner action and the thing. And the reason for that was because some of the site has naturally restored itself. So like between the wetland and the nursing center, there's like a 25-foot wide zone that's now like kind of poplars and early successful stuff that's coming out of the millings and it's stable.
So we don't know if it's
That's why we were
whatever
talking
the
about.
organic
Right,
stuff that
right,
was
yeah.
pushed in or actual fill that came from outside.
Well, right, we don't know that, but through the test pits that the Land Tech has, we're finding that there was fill placed there.
And he needs additional
I mean,
test pits to do this accurately.
Well, so again, if you want to delineate the extent of the fill, we would need further investigation because those 4 pot shots don't tell us an X, Y, and the 3-dimensional quantity. To restore one of the functions and values of wetlands, which is flood storage capacity, we can't tell if the fill has exacerbated a flooding issue or if storms of greater intensity and frequency due to climate change has caused it, or both. And so, without any kind of historical stream gauge hydrologic data on that brook and current data from stream gauging, we wouldn't be able to tell what that delta is. So from a qualitative point of view, yes, we can provide, through excavation of fill, flood storage capacity to some extent. We don't know what we'd be designing to for capacity because we don't know what we've lost and what has changed just due to
The test pits would help
the weather.
Peter.
determine that.
go ahead, Bill.
What did you propose for a mitigation plan?
So based on what I reviewed from Mr. Cole, I thought that more of that activity, he had it limited to this northwest corner. I thought more of that should extend across the whole rear of the parcel.
So what exactly did you propose?
More of what he showed, excavating down, replacing that fill material with wetland soils, planting it with a buffer of wetland shrubs and trees to kind of revegetate that and provide some of the functions and values that were lost from this historic fill. And I understand that that's probably a compromise. I mean, if you wanted to go back to, pre-existing conditions, that'd be a lot of excavation on this property. And, that's what you want to do. We could determine up to that sewer line how much fill is out there.
But did you, in your mitigation plan, you have a certain width of mitigation?
Yeah, I said about 25 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, there were two zones, a 10-foot wide herbaceous zone and a 15-foot wide shrub zone. So it's 25.
So you have a 25-foot wide parallel to what?
Parallel to this existing wetland line.
So in your plan, across, I'm sorry, I didn't retain it. Did you have it across the site?
Across the whole
Yeah.
rear.
And,
The whole west.
so your recommendation is to, from the existing wetland boundary that was delineated in 2024,
Yes.
you are recommending coming back 25 feet, excavating material, and providing
A
wetland.
wetland soil medium. Yeah.
Okay, and are you proposing contours and elevations and?
That would be up to them.
Okay,
I mean, essentially just kind of workshopping this out. You'd match the forest floor elevation of the adjacent wetland, right? Because you want that hydrology to migrate into. So you have a forest floor elevation that's right there, and the site's really flat. And there's not a ton of topography, so it should be an easy task to hit.
why 25 feet?
I just thought it was a reasonable compromise
To do what?
to restore a buffer along the stream.
And did you have function in mind as well? Or what,
Yeah.
what did you have in mind in that?
Yeah,
that
functions of-
25-foot wide swath?
Yeah, to provide 2 layers of vegetation planting. So it's kind of like an ecotone development. And to provide for, wildlife functions and values, habitat, pollinator habitat, production, export,
Okay,
shoreline stabilization, nutrient renovation and removal, sediment trapping.
okay.
You can think of it, if you want the layman's terms of it would be, and Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, the shrub zone is basically like your habitat structure, and your herbaceous zone is basically your water quality filter, and then you got
Okay.
extreme. So if you want to think about it in simplistic terms for the public, that's kind of, the structure of what the restoration effort would look like. It would parallel the entire wetland through the entire course of the
And that,
property.
that'd have to be maintained in perpetuity.
Yes.
And if you were to incorporate flood flow alteration in that as well?
Well, if you're reducing the elevation down to sustaining wetland, yeah, then you're creating
Capacity.
basically a capacity along that stream.
Okay, well, that sounds positive. So,
In your professional opinion, is 25 feet enough?
Well, once you got it revegetated, for most of the functions and values that I talked about, it would be enough. But in terms of flood storage capacity, again, that's a hydrologic and hydraulic
Study.
engineer
Yes.
when they need to do that study. I can't speculate on, how big the flooding events
So in other words,
occurred in the past and now.
that particular engineer would be able to tell us that 25 feet should be 30.
I don't even know if that engineer could do that because he'd have to know what the historical flows are. But again, maybe they could. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, so maybe they could take a look at that and determine. But all I said was that's not me. I'm not a hydrologic engineer.
Jim, what's your opinion on this? I mean,
At this point, I don't have an opinion.
okay. I think we're gonna have to, well, I mean, we'll get to the audience, the citizens in a second. But I think for this commission, I think we have to find out what their plan is and get back to us, to staff and to Land Tech and to the commission to go over it to see if it meets what we're looking for.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, what we'd like to do, if you're in agreement, is take Land Tech's comments, prepare that plan that you're talking about, work with Mr. Zemba, and present that to the commission in advance of this hearing, and be prepared to go over the plan then and address any comments and hopefully be in a good position to move forward at that point.
Anybody else have anything else? Jim, anything? Anybody from audience of citizens have any comments? Yes, say your name and.
John O'Brien, I'm the neighbor in the backyard. I wasn't gonna get up and talk tonight, but I heard my neighbor name come up a lot. And everything.
John, your address is?
12 Vineyard Drive. My backyard butts the dump. That's what it is. Good neighbors don't take care of their property like you said.
But
But
we're
anyway,
here for wetlands.
okay.
Please.
If your soil analysts did their job, tell me why there's chunks of tar, gravel, that a parking lot was dug up and dumped there and then soil was brought in. Why did they pick that up? If you look down and walk on it, you'd see the brook has an oily film. Why is that? You're a soil scientist. You didn't see all the stone?
Your comments need to be directed
Yeah.
through the commission,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you.
Yes, there is multiple truckloads going back, I'd say roughly 2020. If they did their job, why didn't they pick up boulders on the edge of the brook, half buried, ready to fall in? Why didn't they pick up huge tree limbs on the edge, half buried? I live right next door. I can go in my back and see it from my backyard. All the junk that was dumped in their backyard. I get all the wild animals now through my yard. You know what I mean? Go down and look at the gravel that was dumped. It either came from Clayville and or Bristol, multiple.
Well,
And if your soil tests are so great, why did they pick that up? all that fill.
Well, they said there was fill in there.
Yeah. Asphalt.
You said it.
Why did they say asphalt? Stone. Garbage.
Oh, they did say that. He did.
I didn't hear him say
He said
asphalt.
it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear him say asphalt. That's not natural.
Bituminous, no. And he said it was fill. It's basic fill. That's what it is.
Parking lot. Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
So we need to historically enter for the record the comments from the previous. How do we do that?
You can make a motion, I'm sorry. You can make a motion to incorporate the record from the prior public hearing. And I'm sorry, I don't have the application number, but obviously it was the last application for this property that was filed, to incorporate that record into the record for this public hearing. That's the very simple.
Well, so removed on that.
Chairman, I'll get
Well,
the,
we got
the
to.
application. Application 24-8W.
Okay. So I guess right now, before we continue the public hearing, we're gonna for the next meeting, we're gonna expect a written and a drawing of what is proposed by Shadow Meadow, and brought to staff, this commission, and to Land Tech for our comments and whatever.
That's correct, yes. We're going to take the report from Mr. Zemba that was put together and use that based on to build upon the restoration plan that we submitted, and hopefully, moving forward, the dump is hopefully going to be something that the town is proud of. It's going to be a nice 3 residential lot subdivision that restores the wetlands.
I guess we'll just have to wait to see what we get from them.
And Mr. Chairman, I would also like my comment researched and shown on the plan that was addressed several days ago in terms of locating the former test pits that were taken back this past winter on the site, and have that line shown on the plan, knowing that we know that there are wetlands beneath that area.
So just to clarify, to mark on the plan the 4 locations where the test pits were taken?
Yes.
Okay.
And also too, before we continue the public hearing, I'd like a motion to incorporate
The record.
from the records of 24-8W, all the comments that were made from the citizens and whatever else we had stated within the
It would be the entire record.
entire records. Okay.
So all comments, all submissions, all testimony.
So Commissioner Rogan will make a motion, so removed from your comments for application 24-8W to be incorporated into
The record of
The
this.
record of this. Can I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If there's no other comments for Land Tech or for Mr. Cole or for the attorney, I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing to
And that's June 3rd,
June-
Tuesday, June 3rd.
June 3rd. Can I have a motion to accept
Continue the meeting.
continue the meeting?
And make a motion to continue the public hearing.
Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
See you next month. Hope you get everything done.
Thank you.
Next is application 24-05WF, posted by Calco Construction and Development, incorporated to construct a mixed-use development within a regulated wetlands and flood zone and flood hazard zones at 466 Deming Road, 337 Berlin Turnpike, and 51 Worthington Ridge. It was a request for a permit modification.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll offer to the commission the fact that I did speak with the applicant the first part of last week. They requested the item to be placed on the agenda for revisions. Unfortunately, they were not able to get the plan together in time for the submission, so they're requesting that the commission hear the application next month.
Okay. We need a motion for that?
No.
Okay. Yeah. All right, next is notice violation on Lot 2, Block 127 at 552 Deming Road.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I'll comment that we have heard nothing else from the property owner on that site. I know that Attorney Capola has had some conversations or correspondence.
So I
with them.
had sent initial correspondence and there was some positive activity that I think was in response.
Yes, yes, it was.
And that's where we left off, so thought maybe.
Well, I do know
Try
that,
that again.
I do know the lumber pile or the wood pile went down,
Yes,
but we're still waiting for,
The last that I heard, and this goes back, and I think I mentioned it at the last meeting several months ago, that the applicant's engineer was questioning just what information the commission was looking for, and I reemphasized to him that they had requested an existing topo survey of the site to be able to, and with that information, you'd be able to determine, what impacts have occurred on the site.
Jennifer, are you there?
I'm sorry, I
What-
was just grabbing my laptop.
No, was there, I thought we talked about finding them or putting a possible lien or,
Well, I think Attorney Capola had mentioned, this goes back maybe last fall.
yeah,
You sent some correspondence to them on that
To
site.
do next steps on it.
yeah.
I'll revisit the actions taken and I will
If you can contact them just to see what they're doing, if they're doing anything on this.
surely, yes.
All right, that's good. Let's hope we get some action for next meeting anyways. The next, notice of non-compliance issued to Kokomo Old Brickyard Lane LLC and Kokomo Brothers on July 12th, 2024 regarding non-compliance with restoration plan of 212 and 245 Old Brickyard Lane approved by the commission in April 2nd of 2024. I don't know if anybody, hope everybody read the letter that was sent to the commission from Chatham Tree Care on behalf of Kokomo. I don't know how everyone else took this letter, but it seemed like this commission was being blamed for everything that was going on there.
Certainly a negative
Right.
piece of correspondence.
And I really believe that we need an explanation on why we were targeted by Chatham Tree Care. And if nothing else, I think this commission is owed a little apology because this is very, very damning to us and it's untrue. Mr. Kokomo, do you have any comments?
I can't, I didn't write the letter, so.
Well, but it's your agent.
Yeah, well, so let me give you the background. The deadline was June 15th, I believe. And I went back to June 3rd.
Well, June 3rd, right?
I went to the nursery and I said, I need, these Austrian pines. And the nursery just said, just letting you know, this is going to be a problem for you because you have to warranty for the stipulated agreement. And we will not warranty these trees because they won't grow. And I said, well, I've been down this road and, there was dialogue back and forth. Jim had wrote a memo on it. And so I said, can you recommend an arborist? And they gave me, I don't even know the guy, Chavone or something. So they gave me his name and number and he came out to the site and he said, you're being asked to me, you're being, I feel like I am being asked to do something that it's not gonna last because the nursery won't provide it. And I know the nursery said it was wetland soils and it's not wetland soils, but the soil is very, very wet. And I, for ha-has, put another conifer in there to see if that would last and it died just in the last 60 days.
my neighbor's been taking care of the property, mowing the property, cleaning the property. And he ripped out all the dead stuff and he left the big trees that I still didn't remove. I mean, the tone, I didn't write the letter, I didn't, so I mean, you know, please don't, that I have anything to do with that.
Well, I mean, he is your agent. I mean, you're
responsible.
and the only I'm saying is that this was proposed by the owners of the property. You agreed to it. And
No, I know, we've been down this path.
but I'm saying, but you're blaming us.
I'm not blaming.
Well, your agent, you're right here. If you read this, Tom, it's blaming us for picking us out. We had nothing to do with it. We just told you what the owner wanted, and you approved it, and you signed it.
I mean, it's a little bit like, if you want to make an analogy, like you want me to accept responsibility. I mean, it's the spectacle that we had here that your soil scientist, Anthony, doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like, people are saying that about him. I don't believe that. So, I mean, let's not say because I hired him through a third party, it's my responsibility.
Todd,
Did
did
you
you approve
read
of
this?
this letter going through to the commission?
Did you see the email? How many did you get? Because I asked him to tone it down.
This is what we received.
Okay, so
There
then
you go.
Lisa, I read it and I asked him to tone it down, and Lisa can tell you, your staff, I said, if she follows the email chain, you need to tone it down, and then he sent a second. So please, and that's documented.
So you didn't read the second one then?
Second or the third, I made him tone it down. There's 3 that came over to Lisa.
Well,
I don't know which one she gave.
Well, this is dated 5/4/2025. This is the last one.
This is the last one. This is toned down?
Then good.
This is toned down?
Well,
I didn't read it. I told him to tone it down. Did you see it on my email chain that I said? Thank you. So please, I can't speak.
By all means, please.
If I could just have the floor. So Jennifer Coppola, again, your counsel. What concerns me the most about it is its factual and accuracy. And I think that, Mr. Chairman, that was your first statement. Not only is it highly offensive, okay, but there are very, very concerning factual misstatements. I don't understand, given what the record has been, why someone would represent, especially somebody with the credentials, and I don't know him, and unfortunately he's not here. So you know, we can't have a discourse with him. But the Austrian pines were not installed. Japanese pines were installed. That's what's of record. And I'm at a loss to understand, because it came across to me that it appeared that the file was not reviewed, that the restoration plan wasn't looked at, that the multiple correspondence that was issued by your enforcement officer, by your duly authorized agent about non-compliance, and the correspondence, and again, it sounds like he was retained by the applicant to submit this opinion that's been given to you. It's concerning. I do think too, the applicant has indicated that he has, or I should say, really, the violator, the property owner of 212, his representative has indicated, Mr. Coppola has indicated, that he tried another tree. Maybe we need to hear what that was, and it failed within the past 60 days. He just gave that testimony. You know, this maybe needs to be researched out of the level of professionalism that you offer to property owners, okay? But I don't know how you take this, and you know, it's up to you. You weigh what you receive, okay? But I don't know how you take this seriously with the fact that there are so many factual inaccuracies in it. Austrian pines were not planted. Japanese pines were planted. That is the record.
Right.
That's true. Ms. Polster, so here's all I know, just quickly. And a conifer is a conifer is a conifer is what and to Jim, what Jim wrote to me is like, you know, if you put a berm, maybe they would grow better. And all I have said is, for accuracy purposes, Jen, and Ms. Capola is right, I didn't, but if you plant a conifer and you have to warranty those soils in that location, they're not appropriate soils for that species. And if you want to run around like Dante's Inferno, we can just go round and round in circles, and that's what I'm going to do, because then they're going to die, and then you're going to say replace them, and then they're going to die. And I believe, and I did sign it, and I believe that I'm a fool. I said it before. The gentleman who did it knew this. He's a smart man, and I don't know. I think, and that's where we're at. I just feel like I'm just going to chase my tail, and we're going to be back here with a dead tree.
Well,
And a
have
dead tree,
you
and a dead tree.
talked to the people, the owners?
I have not spoken to the owners, but I thought that you had the jurisdictional, and I'll let Jennifer, I'll let you talk in 1 second, because and she knows the rule. I believe that a violation, that you have jurisdiction, and that there is some sort of case law, and I don't know it, and I don't have counsel here, but that you have the ability, if the tree doesn't have a value or a function, you can't, there's variability there. And this commission, you know, I don't know what its sole function, what technically the sole function is, but that's a wetland area. That's in the remediations in a proposed upland review area, but has very wet soils, just based on those trees that had passed away. And the trees that I did put in that are thriving are not conifers. Now, I didn't fulfill the whole situation. All I'm saying is why don't we look and say, forget everything he says about you, about me, and just, why don't we just narrow down into what is the best species that will thrive in that location? And if you want them 8 feet or 10 feet, what's the problem? We want them to live, and that's all I'm saying.
And look, I mean, at the end of the day,
I
that
understand.
sounds very reasonable, but
Right.
it's, you know, it's up to you. I don't know what your experience has been in similar soils. You know, have Austrian pines failed? I don't know. Austrian pines were not put in. You have a representation being made that the nursery that he talked to will not warranty the
Right.
installation of them.
Well, I mean-
We are not privy to the conversation that was had back and forth with regard to that. If there are other options, he's indicating that there were other trees that were put in. I thought they were,
Who recommended the Austrian pines?
The homeowner, essentially.
So the other landlord.
Right,
It was
the
an
The other
agreement-
landlord.
It was an agreement between the two
Him
properties.
and I, but I don't believe in Jim. Maybe did you look into it? The property? Did anyone, like? Maybe we should ask Land Tech. There is this. What's the best species? Because at the end of the day, if I put in the Austrian pine, and you're right, it's not a Japanese pine, but it's a conifer tree, right, or whatever they're called. If they're going to die, what do we do?
Well, and I agree with you, Mr. Cockman, I agree with you if that's the case, but that's this guy is saying. I'm assuming that's his professional opinion, and he is licensed, so I hope we have to believe him because his license is on the line.
Right.
He's got this letter, and
So-
if he's wrong.
So let's call him a jerk and everything that he might be, but let's wonder what's the best substitution.
But Jennifer, do we have the legal right to say, listen, you're right, these won't work. We're going to plant something there, and this is what we're going to plant. Can we do that? Or Jim, remember.
Do we have to
so
modify
I
the plan?
don't recall, was the nursery named that?
Yeah, there was, back, Jim saw the nursery where they said.
The other question I have is, if we do modify it to different trees, is the other land owner going to be?
I think they need to be consulted.
Right, that's what I'm.
Because we got to remember, they're the affected property.
Correct. So I just want to
there
make
was
sure
work
that
occurred that
they're,
they did not authorize on their.
well, if they're in agreement, and then there'd be no problem.
Right. And, and Mr. Kokomo, I'm sorry, it's for you to sit there and say, he did this to to bust you, I think that's not very, I mean,
But did anyone here on this commission review the species of the tree?
My concern is the fact that the original violation was you trespassing on this gentleman's property.
Well, not me personally, but yes.
but, okay.
You can blame him wherever you want. And then we get a nasty gram from this gentleman.
That's all irrelevant. That has
It's
nothing to
not irrelevant. It's a nasty
Tom,
gram.
if I
to the
wrote a
commission.
letter like that to you, with that tone of voice, what
I'd be
would you
pissed
do?
off.
What would you do?
I'd be pissed off.
Right.
But I wouldn't,
Well, I'd like
if
a
you wrote it to
redaction.
me, I'd be pissed off.
I'll address it. Why
But if
don't
you
have
wrote it,
your
no,
comments?
Jim, see, that's
Right.
what the point is. If you wrote it to me, I'd be angry. But if your sister, who I don't know, wrote it, I'm not gonna be angry at you.
Well, yeah, but again, if this is totally different, you hired this person to do this. And this letter that was sent to us, you should have proofread it.
I hired him to tell me I mean, again, we can go round and round, and I don't wanna do it. At the recommendation of the nursery, I hired him because he's an arborist. End
Right.
of story.
Jennifer, I think what you're gonna say is that would you be willing to contact
I would be happy to contact him and address the
and
content.
show him this
Yes.
as proof that what he recommended or what he wanted is not gonna work? And again, let's be fair. If this is true and he says he still wants him, I can't see putting the blame on Mr. Kokomo if they're gonna die every year. It's not fair to the Kokomos to put these trees and spend all that money and have them die because it's not planted in the proper way. Let's get something that's gonna live and
Well, if you contact the neighbor who this
Right,
disturbed property, and
Yeah.
if you tell them that,
right.
and goes, if we plant these trees and they don't live, we're not responsible, and see what he says. That's all I would say.
I think if you contact him, Jennifer, and show him this letter, and then say, all right, this is what they recommend planting. Let's see if we can get,
Is there agreement?
yeah.
Because
Or some
everything else
alternative,
on that,
yeah.
everything else on the restoration plan is done. Those things are still there, so the no seepage
Yep.
into the pond. Those other bushes are thriving. And the wetland seed grass is growing nice, except for the homeowner, the guy's cutting it. So, I mean,
Well, that's up to him. He
Yeah,
didn't have
that's
to
up to
cut.
him, it's his problem.
But I think, I mean, let's resolve this and let's get his opinion or whatever he feels needs to be done. But I think you should tell him, I think.
Jennifer, if you write him a letter stating that, and he agrees to it,
So what we're going to attempt to do, I think what makes the most sense is to come up with a planting that everybody can agree
Right,
to.
right.
That is not an Austrian pine.
Right.
And if he says, no, he wants Austrian pines, then I'll plant him as long as you take me up the hook.
Yeah, I think he would, I think you have to tell him that we have an arborist who says it's not gonna,
survive.
they're not gonna survive there. And we can't expect the Kokomos to keep replanting them every year because, that's what he wants.
I understand
Is that
what you're
fair?
asking me to do.
Is that fair, Jim? Yeah.
The commission's.
Yeah.
It's your choice.
I mean, Bill, what do you think? I mean, you're a soil scientist. Do you know anything about these Austrian?
It's not up to us, it's up to them.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Jennifer, so just,
Try to
try to smooth it out.
bring a meeting of the month.
Yeah.
On the tree.
And if you want, and I only did put, I think, 4 on what's there, does he like what's there? Those are supposed to go to be, I think, 60 feet tall, does he like that? What's existing, because they're about
What are
10
they?
feet now. I don't even know what they are. You know what they are, Jim? Jim's got them.
No, you never called me like the letter said before you planted them.
But I can find out what they
Yeah, so if you would do that, that would be, and have, maybe you could talk to him and have an answer by the next meeting. So,
Well, I think if there's an agreement, they could certainly be potentially planted by the next meeting,
Right.
which was what
Yeah.
was intended.
right,
I think that
yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Jennifer, I just don't warranty something.
Yeah, so if you, contact as soon as possible and get back to Mr. Kokomo. And if, you know, you make a decision that this is what everybody wants, then just have them do it.
Very good. Thank you, I understand.
Thank you. The next is that we have to make a motion on the rescheduling the July 1st meeting. And we have to move it to July 8th. Can I have a motion to move the meeting?
Commissioner Roman make a motion to move the meeting from July 1st to July 8th.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any correspondence, Jim?
Yes, we had a piece of correspondence from a tree harvesting firm that we've worked with in the past. It's looking at, they've been contracted by the City of Meriden Water Department to do some preventive maintenance within the areas of the Halemere Reservoir.
Next more before.
Excuse me?
Didn't that come up once before?
Yeah, I would say over the past 10 years,
10 years.
this firm has been in within the City of Meriden's properties probably 3 or 4 times. And it's selective harvesting to maintain the cover around the reservoirs. And again, they do have a right to do that. So.
And this, the letter we got just informed.
It's just an informative.
Yep. And that's all I have for correspondence.
Anything else? Jennifer, you have anything for us?
I don't.
Okay, all right. If that's it, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Margaret, thank you for coming again.
Oh, thanks. Always interesting.
Jim, I got a question. I don't know if it's got to be on our property. The solar panels off Chilman Highway?
Yeah.
What's